All right. Hello, everybody. We'll give everybody a minute to get in as people are probably coming out of meetings and things. So in the meantime, um, if you all want to drop an emoji in the chat that represents how you feel about AI right now, um, that's how we're going to start it off. I want to read the vibe of the room. So drop me an emoji that gives me your vibe. And while you guys are all thinking about that for a minute, um, I'm going to I'm going to play a game of four-person Pong that I had Claude make me about 5 minutes ago. So that's that's what I'm going to do while you guys are doing that. I told it that it was too hard or it was too easy. So, and that it needed to surprise me. So it started adding more balls and they get faster and faster. Um, Oops. And then I totally miss one by not paying attention to where my mouse is on the screen. There we go. Okay. Now we're cooking. So how are those emojis coming? Okay, so we got some grimace, we got some thoughtful, we got some graphs. Uh Confused eyes, I think is what that one is. I think mine is currently cowboy hat emoji because this is just like I feel like I'm just along for the ride on some crazy weird adventure where something new happens every day. It might be that you find out that some big AI startup is a scam, or it might be that you find out that some new model can do mathematical reasoning or coding better than it could before. So, all right, I'm gonna stop playing this now. So hi everybody. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Christopher Moravec. I'm the CTO for Dymaptic, which is a small software development company. And this is my monthly webinar where we talk about AI and software development and GIS and other crazy things. So a couple of folks submitted some questions ahead of time, and we'll get to those. But I wanted to kind of go through a couple of fun things and a group activity here before we get to the questions. So what we're going to start with is actually talking about my Whisper frame, which is right here in my background. Hopefully you all can see that at least reasonably well. The Whisper frame listens to my meetings. I have one in the living room too, in the house, but it listens to my meetings, and every few minutes it takes the text and it takes the transcript from those meetings and it generates a new image to try to represent the meeting or the vibe of the meeting, so to speak. And so you can tell that right before this, as we were getting ready for the webinar, we were playing some video games. At least I was, Holly and Chantel were too. We're playing some video games to kind of relax and get ready for the webinar. And so the Whisper Frame has correctly identified that that's what we were doing. So we're going to see how the Whisper Frame does as we're talking about AI and things today. I suspect it'll probably do some interesting things. It usually does some interesting things and some boring things. Um, so we're going to dive into a little bit about how this works, and talk about that for a few minutes before we go on to other things. So if you got questions about this, please drop them in the chat, and I'll keep an eye on it while we're going here. Um, oh, before I dive into how this works, I want to share this link with all of you. So if you see a piece of art in the background that you like and you want to see more, if you go to that URL, that web app, it'll show you the current image, and it'll show you the prompt that created that image that was sent to the AI. And that'll make more sense in a second. Um, but yeah, it is delayed by a minute. So if you sit there hitting refresh or so, it's delayed so that my whisper frame can have its moment of glory before everybody else gets the image. Um, but if you want to see what it looks like, that's the way to do it. Okay, so this is actually version 2 or an updated version of the Whisper Frame. The first version I made a YouTube video about back in 2023. And uh, the idea for this came from my friend Danny, who I think is in the meeting here. Oh yeah, he is. Came from my friend Danny is this idea of kind of trying to draw images that represent conversations in the living room, the whisper frame. And so it the first version of this used a you can see the whisper frames playing along. Um, the first version of this used some previous image models and did all kinds of weird things. It drew weird images, it drew not safe for work images, it did all kinds of crazy things. Um, and and when ChatGPT or when OpenAI came out with their new image model, which is very creatively called GPT Image 1 or something like that, um, they it started that image generator was so much better, right? We saw people doing Studio Ghibli or Studio Ghibli versions of themselves. We see people on LinkedIn making action figures of themselves. We see a lot of all of a sudden very sophisticated image generation. So it was time to dust off the old Whisper frame and make it go again and try to use that new image generator. Um, so I'm going to switch over and we'll look at this is where the source code lives. So this is a public repo. So if you really want to try to make this thing go yourself, go for it. I will warn you that this is not like a commercial ready application, but you can get it to go. So basically, the process here is that it listens to ambient conversation. So my whisper frame is actually right over here, and is this Raspberry Pi that I have with a USB microphone on it. So super simple setup, and it just sits on my desk out of the way, where I'm not going to bump it, but where it can hear me. And so it's continuously listening, but there's a lot of kind of ambient background noise that I don't want it to record. When there's just loud noises, I don't want it to record. Or if I'm playing music, I don't want it to record. So we need a way to first detect voices. And so I used to do that with a different library, but their licensing changed. So I switched to this WebRTC. And all you really need to know is it's a very basic algorithm that tries to detect whether or not there are words in the audio that's being recorded. If it does detect words, then we send it to OpenAI's Whisper API and we transcribe it. We convert it into text. Once we convert it into text, we save that in a running transcript file, just in a text file. And after we've collected like 20 different snippets, and the recordings are roughly 30 seconds long. So that's a setting. I think I use 30 seconds right now. So once it kind of records all of those and it gathers a bunch of those in that file, it takes all of those, the last 5 minutes or so of conversation, and it sends it to GPT. I'm using 4.1 to summarize it and extract one element from the conversation and generate an image prompt describing what type of image it should draw based on that concept. So for example, this one behind me is these emojis. So if we look at the prompt, a colorful digital collage of expressive emojis, grimacing, thoughtful, cowboy hat, and confused eyes, clustered together atop a background of glowing computer screen displaying code symbolizing diverse reaction and moods during a lively AI and software development webinar. Okay, so that's pretty cool. That pretty much nailed what I was talking about at the beginning, asking everybody to drop an emoji in the chat. So it did a really good job of extracting that into this prompt. So once we have a prompt, we take that and we send it to a custom AI endpoint that I built. And it's not really that custom. It's actually using GPT's image generator or OpenAI's image generator, the same one that you can use in ChatGPT. It's using that exact same image generator. The only difference is that I added an Azure Blob storage component so that when after I generate the image, I'm saving it in my own storage on the cloud. That was so that I didn't have to save it on the Raspberry Pi and slowly fill that up, and also so that it was in a public place so that I could put it in a web app like this where I can have other people be able to see what the image is on the Whisper frame, and so that I can get that image quickly too, because sometimes in a meeting somebody's like, what is that crazy thing? And I want to be able to copy and paste it and drop it into the chat for people to enjoy. So we save that into an Azure Blob store. And then I do keep track on the Raspberry Pi. I have a little JSON file that has a database of image URLs and prompt that went with it. So that when there is no active conversation, when there's nobody talking that it can hear, it'll just rotate through previous images. Um, and that's less useful here in my office where I'm in meetings all day long. But in the living room, it's a little bit better because it rotates through previous images and things. And it's funny to see images for conversations you weren't even there for. You're kind of like, what were you talking about that caused that to get drawn? So that's funny. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much it. It records audio, it transcribes it, it summarizes that transcription and groups it into or extracts one element of the conversation or one primary element of the conversation, creates a prompt about that, generates the image, and then sticks that in the Whisper frame for display over here. And that's basically the whole process. Um, and it makes really wonderful images sometimes. Um, it one of my favorite ones is was at the end of my newsletter article about this. It drew this picture here with cat stickers and Legos because uh, if you're familiar at all with dymaptic at conferences, we give away cat stickers and dog stickers and different things like that that are GIS themed. And we were talking about different types of swag we could give away at conferences. And obviously, maybe Legos came up in that discussion. That's all I'm going to say about that. Maybe there'll be Legos. Um, yeah, so that's the Whisper frame. It does a really fun job of drawing kind of the vibe of the room and the vibe of the conversation. It will even this new version will even try to draw things like workflows. So if we're in a meeting and we're describing like a workflow in Survey 123 that takes data collected from the field and passes it to a workflow like a Zapier webhook that's going to process it and then it appears in a map and a dashboard. It'll actually try to draw that workflow out, which is it's never actually made anything that is particularly useful. I think it's because it's too abstract. There's the recording of the transcript, which has gaps in it. I'm purposely not trying to make a full transcript. I'm grabbing snippets of text, and while it's transcribing it, it's not recording anymore. So I'm just grabbing snippets of the conversation. And so that combined with the idea of extracting one primary point from the conversation means that the resulting image, while related and funny and sometimes useful, it's not going to have a lot of detail. It's not going to be able to draw a detailed diagram, for example. And actually, the AI kind of falls down drawing detailed diagrams anyway. It kind of forgets what it's doing sometimes. It's much better at doing something like generating a text for a workflow diagram. For example, when preparing for this webinar yesterday, I wanted some system architecture diagrams like this. And so I actually had a code buff which is a coding tool, an AI-powered coding tool, build these diagrams for me by reading the code. And we iterated over it multiple times to make sure that it got it mostly correct, and asking it to, please review the code file in great detail and make sure that this workflow is right and things like that. But it made these all by itself, with my coaxing. So so it is super useful at things like that. But the diagrams, the images that it draws are its workflow images are not so good. Okay. So that's the Whisper frame. We will see what it generates for us while we're going on here. So the next segment of the live stream here is I want to build an app with all of you. Um, and so while I'm talking about this, what I'd like to do is build a game. So you saw me playing that four-person Pong at the beginning. So if any of you have ideas about a game, I'm looking for something relatively simple like Pong, Tetris, Minesweeper, something along those lines, something where the mechanics are fairly well known, and but something that we can put a twist on, like taking Pong and making it four players. So I've got a couple ideas, but I want to see if anybody else has those. So while I talk about what we're going to do here, and why I'm putting these requirements on it, you guys drop some ideas in the chat here if you've got anything, any good ideas about a video game we might try to replicate or build our own version of. So the reason I'm putting some requirements on this is I do want it to be successful. And I've tried several different games. And having both GPT-03, which is pretty much the premier model that ChatGPT or OpenAI offers right now, and Claude, Sonnet or Opus version 4, which are their premier models, and Missile Command. That might be a good one, Kyle. I've been testing these different models to see which ones are better at coding, because O3 is really good at reasoning and research and doing things like that. But I haven't been happy with the code it generates. I still like the code that Claude generates way better. And so I was doing some tests recently. So to kind of see what what it can do. And so for example, I had where did my other one go? Do, do, do. Hmm. Well, now I don't see oh, there it is. Here we go. So I had it make a Tetris game. And so this is what it came up with as far as Tetris. Like this is pretty good. This is me playing it. Um, I can play a full game of Tetris here. I can also give it autoplay and it will play for me even at high speed. And it kind of has even an algorithm that it built when I asked it to build this autoplay. Whereas when I gave the exact same prompts to OpenAI O3, it made a much lamer looking game. It was still Tetris. The mechanics still worked. The UI was not as good. Um, and when I asked it to build an autoplay, it just made an auto down arrow. So it just stacked them all up and lost the game immediately. So I had to coax it through building an algorithm to play Tetris. It didn't get it on the first try. So like so I want to build something here together that will be kind of fun to watch happen, is fairly simple and well known. That'll make it more successful. Um, and then I have a surprise that we'll do at the end, something that I built yesterday that we're going to play together. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna switch back over. We're gonna make a new chat here. So we're in the Claude desktop app. Um, Here, I'm going to use Claude Sonnet. There are two premier models that that Claude or Anthropic provides. There's Opus and Sonnet 4. Um, they're named for the size of the model. So Anthropic is blessedly a little bit better at naming things than OpenAI is. So Sonnet is kind of a medium-sized large language model, and Opus is a very large language model. Um, I haven't seen a huge difference between the two of these in asking it to do games like this. I have seen reports of Claude Opus doing things like spending multiple hours thinking about a problem and then spitting it out, and then spitting out a solution. Although I don't think that within like the default Claude application, they will let it think for hours. I think you'd have to go into like the API console and slide the number of thinking tokens all the way to maximum, slide it all the way to 11 and 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 run it there. So we're going to use Sonnet because I've had a lot of good success with Sonnet 4 doing this kind of thing. And we're gonna see if we can build an app here. And um, I yeah, there's a couple of funny things. We'll see what happens. I just don't know what it's going to do. So we're just going to try things. Um, so what do we have here? We got missile command, arcanine, or breakout. Breakout is a good one. Shelling game. Word game. Yeah. I Word games aren't as fun in this case because they're not visual. Although that would be a fun kind of multiplayer game. And I bet Claude could knock that out. And I'll explain why I think that Claude could do that in a little bit here when I show you something else. Okay, so let's do breakout. Um, and I think we're gonna start real simple here. Um, So what I usually do when it's high stakes, I'm doing a live demo is high stakes, is I start by by telling it who it is, giving it a little bit of background. You are a software, wow, developer that builds web games using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, so I'm not telling it exactly what I want here, but I'm giving it a little bit of background and I'm being specific about the background. So I'm telling it that it's a software developer. I'm telling it that it builds web games. And I'm kind of giving it some technology pieces, right? HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Okay, that's that's an important step. Um, no matter what it is that you're asking the AI to do, is telling it how you want it to behave and what it should use. That helps increase the probability of having your having it be successful. Um, so we've told it kind of who it is at a high level here, and um, build me a breakout clone that I can play here in the browser. So Claude has the ability to use these things called um, artifacts. There we go. I forgot the word for a second. Artifacts, which actually, when it writes HTML and JavaScript, it can run that right here in the Claude interface. And what's kind of cool is that means that one, I can see it do it, like we're seeing it here. It's definitely typing faster than I can. But I can also play it right here or test it right here. An even more interesting thing that I noticed the other day, I was having it help me write some JavaScript to run in a workflow where I was processing some timesheet data. And I gave it some sample data and I asked it to write some code to manipulate some JSON basically into a certain output format. And I told it exactly what I wanted. And it actually was able to test it right here in the workflow. So not only did it spit out the code in the artifact, but it would execute that JavaScript in my browser with the test data I gave it and made sure that it works. which was really great because it meant that I was a lot more successful more quickly when I was doing that. Okay, so we have breakout here. So it looks like I mean it probably told me all this, but I'm just going to play it. It looks like I can use arrow keys or my mouse to move the paddle, and if I click here into the window and I press space, yeah, I'd say we have a fully working breakout game here. Um, that's that's pretty good. Trying to trying to be sneaky here and hit the ball so that it goes up. Okay, so that was fun. Um, that didn't take very long to build me a little game like this. So now we probably want to I want to make this more complicated. This is fun, but it's kind of slow. I'm probably going to get bored pretty quick. Um, so, so what can we do to make this harder? Um, want to make the game harder. So I've got some ideas, right? I could make the ball go faster. I could add multiple balls, something like that. But just for fun, let's just pose the challenge to the AI and see what it comes up with. I want to make the game harder. Um, could you build, could you add some things to make the game harder as I play? Maybe multiple balls or faster balls or um, something like that. Be creative. I don't know. Most of the time, I know what I want it to do. And so I will just kind of directly tell it, oh, I want you to do this in the application. Like when I'm using it to write code, I'm usually not letting it be creative, so to speak, in choosing what it's building. I usually am guiding it. But oh, hey, look, the Whisper frame is playing breakout with us too. Um, So I'm usually telling it more specifically what I want, but it's also kind of fun to not do it. And I think this is when people say vibe coding, I think is what they mean is like I'm not being very specific. I'm not really paying attention to the code that it outputs. I'm just focusing on the result. And I think that's actually totally fine if the result meets what you want. Now I don't have any problems like security issues and stuff like that here. I have a pure JavaScript app where I'm playing Breakout in my browser. Like yeah. Um, so there could be times when you want to pay more attention to that code or review it and do pull requests and kind of the traditional developer process to that code. But when I'm playing Breakout in the Claude thing or doing something like that, it's fine. And coding by vibe, even though I kind of hate that term, um, works great for this. Building a disposable app. Like I don't care if this goes away or if I forget about it. It doesn't matter. I could ask it to build it again or build a different version. Maybe I'd want different colors. I can just ask it to build it again. Um, the reason I don't like the term vibe coding in general is because as a software consultant for my entire career, this is what I've been doing, right? People come to me and they explain kind of what they want and the problems they're trying to solve or the systems they're trying to integrate. They're giving me the vibe. And I work with our clients to come up with what we're going to do for that. And then we build that document, we build that process, and then we go and we execute on it. We build the software for it. And so like in a sense, I've been coding by vibe my entire career. The only difference is that instead of sending it to a development team or writing these probably couple hundred lines of code at least on my own, I am talking to you all and watching Claude build an app. I will say that even though Claude is way faster at writing code, I'm not sure that it helps with my efficiency very much because I oftentimes um, have to. I oftentimes have to, or I oftentimes get stuck watching it. And so I don't go on and do something else. I think where it would be really useful is if I could leave this behind and let it work on it and do some other activity for a little while and come back and then have the game ready to go. But oftentimes I get stuck watching because I'm like, ooh, what's it gonna do next? Um, so um, yeah. Let's see, couple of things in the chat here before we see what it did for us. Oh, thanks for joining, Anthony. We'll see you later. Pac-Man would be cool. Oh, actually, I really like GIS themed Pac-Man. We might have to ask it to do that while we're doing the Q&A section. Um, uh, yeah, GIS themed memory. Yeah, that would be fun too. Um, man, GIS themed Pac-Man though. I really like that. Okay. All right, let's see what we did here. So it gave us an output. I've transformed your breakout game into an intense, progressively challenging experience. Okay, we'll see. Levels faster, shrinking paddle. Okay, moving bricks. That. All right. Let's see if this even works. Okay. I probably needed a way. I should have told it that I need to like. Oh, what is that? Am I supposed to catch that? I don't know. I don't know what that falling F did. I guess I probably should have a gravity flip. Oh. Oh, okay. Well, maybe it turns out I'm not very good at video games. Okay, but that was kind of fun, and I liked that it kind of threw in some weird things. I don't know if the gravity flip thing was actually very useful, but it that was a pretty cute version of the game. Um, yeah. Okay. Well, that was pretty fun. So the point here is that Claude 4 is really powerful at doing things like this. Any type of one-off thing where you're like, oh, it'd be cool if I had an app that did X to help you with a process. Claude can probably build a version of that in a couple of minutes, right? We've spent a few minutes going through this, changing it, working through it. You know, any type of HTML, JavaScript application like this, Claude will nail. Um, and and it is a really powerful tool for building kind of one-off, even silly applications like this. In the GIS world, it does suffer with Esri libraries a little bit. And there was actually a question about that and that somebody submitted before. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. But any non-Esri things that you want it to build, you can probably get a version of it very quickly, or at least a working prototype that you can hand off to your team to go and build the real thing or the more complete thing for you. Okay, so that was fun. I really want to do GIS Pac-Man. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start Claude on a GIS Pac-Man, and then we're going to switch gears. We're not even going to watch it. We're going to answer the couple of questions that I got beforehand, any other questions that show up in the chat, and then we'll come back to GIS Pac-Man and see what it does. So I want it to work on this quite a bit. So let's see here. So a web game developer that uses JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. I want you to build me a version of Pac-Man that is GIS themed. Maybe globe emoji or something like that. Make it a traditional single player Pac-Man, but all GIS themed. Okay. Yeah, I think hard about building a high quality game that I can play right here in the browser. Okay, great. We're just going to send that off. Um, so There's a bunch of spelling errors in there. And I tend to not worry about that because most of the time it knows what I mean, especially when I'm on a live stream and I get nervous, and so typing is hard. Okay, we're going to let Claude work on that, and we're going to go on to a couple of questions that folks asked ahead of time, and I see there's a couple of more showing up here in the chat. So the first one that got asked was there's a lot of existing widgets in ArcGIS Web App Builder, and some of those are more powerful than the ones in Experience Builder. And can we use AI to convert them from Web App Builder to Experience Builder? Okay. The answer is it's complicated. So yeah, the answer is it's complicated. So there's a couple of reasons. So first, Web App Builder was built using a framework called Dojo, and Experience Builder is built in React. React is a modern web framework, so the AIs know it very well. So that has some going that helps quite a bit. Dojo is an older framework that is not nearly as popular as React, and the AIs don't understand it as much. So when it's reading that code, it struggles with some of the things that are in there. So you've got that kind of base level. On top of that, in Web App Builder, we have the Esri components. We have Esri JavaScript SDK, plus we have the Web App Builder very specific SDK. And again, it's not as documented on the internet. There aren't as many examples. The models don't know about it as much. Same thing in Experience Builder. We have the entire Jimu library inside Experience Builder that controls all of the interactions and the connections and the map interactions with other widgets. And it's not as documented. There is not as much information about it as there are about React in general or other React things on the internet. And so it struggles. You can't just ask Claude, for example, to build you an Experience Builder widget. There are too many other moving parts. Now, it doesn't mean that it's hopeless, though. And I've been working on some experiments where I'm trying to do conversions from Web App Builder to Experience Builder. So if anybody has a specific widget that they want converted or they'd like to see converted, especially if it's a community one, please drop that in the chat because I'm looking for different types of samples that people are interested in to do some experiments with. But essentially what I'm doing is I'm using AI to write documentation about Web App Builder and about Experience Builder that it can then consume. So I'm using AI coding tools to read code, write documentation, put that into Markdown files, and then I'm giving the AI the original Web App Builder widget and all of that documentation in addition to Experience Builder. And I'm saying, now make a plan to convert this widget to Experience Builder. And once I have that plan, I go through it and I read it in detail and I look at, does this make sense? What is it missing? Because it's not going to be perfect. It's going to miss things. And so I go through that plan. Sometimes I ask it to add more details. Sometimes I add those details myself. I go back and forth with it and I get that plan to where I want it to be. Once I have a plan, I can execute that plan kind of step by step and get through that whole process, but one piece at a time. And what's important here is to have your coding tool, your AI coding tool, step through the plan one step at a time. And at each step, it should have a working thing of some kind. And at that step, you should commit it into your source code and you should test it. You should go back and forth with it, asking it for tweaks or make those tweaks yourself. But you should work on it with it as it's stepping through its plan. And that, I think, is the trick to getting there. I'm working on a couple of these right now, trying to figure out what that process looks like. So maybe more to come, but I do think it's possible, but it's not something you can just send a coding agent off to go work on. It doesn't make it. Um, because Experience Builder itself is too complicated. It can't run it. So like tools like CodeBuff or OpenAI's Codex tool, it can't run the tool because it doesn't know enough. It's not just like loading the web page. It's loading the web page and then it's building an app and taking the app and hooking it to a map and getting the data sources to work. And then it's configuring like there's just this whole stream of things that it can't do. Even if you pre-configured the app, you're still looking at a very complex application with a map and other things that are interactive in it. It seems to be too much for those agents to work on right now. But if you're filling the role of that testing part, you can get there. And that's a pretty good segue into the second beforehand question that I got, which was from Danny about AI coding assistants. And Danny has this big long list of coding assistants, which I'll drop in the chat here for everybody. Um, and and his question was, which one, like, do I have recommendations? So the my favorite coding tool, hands down, is CodeBuff right now. I have not tried all of these on this list. I admit I have not tried all of these. There are some of them that I have, or some of them that I have seen other people use. Um, the two that I've used most recently are GPT Codex, which is a tool. There's two versions of. There's a command line version, and then there's like send it off as an agent and have it work on it. I had it build me an app. It built an okay MVP, but I ended up pulling the code down and then using CodeBuff to kind of finish it out. And I think it's because it's not quite sophisticated enough to build it on its own. Like the agent isn't quite autonomous enough yet. Um, but it does have a very cool feature in that it basically works with a Git repo and doing pull requests. So if you have like a Gishu or a pull request that has like a long list of feedback or a very specific set of what you want it done, like you've documented it well, Codex might be able to just go off and do it for you and come back, which is a very interesting concept. So that is interesting to me, but it's not as good as CodeBuff. I think that Copilot is basically like AI-powered IntelliSense. Copilot has a lot of other things now, but AI-powered IntelliSense is kind of the bare minimum that I think every software developer should be using today. Because it just makes you more efficient. You can go from comment to a scaffolded function that you can then complete in a few seconds. And it really increases productivity, I think. It's not always right. Sometimes you ignore it. That's fine. But I think that it's much better. You know, it's like moving from a text editor to an IntelliSense editor where you can press dot at the end of an object and get the list of properties on it. Except now you're doing slash slash. I want to query the database and get this data back, and it writes the query for you, and then you tweak it. That I think that's kind of the bare minimum. And then CodeBuff, which is my favorite right now, despite the fact that it's all command line and I don't like the UI. It is very good at building software. And I've built some fairly complex things with it. And we use it at work in some of our applications. It can't do everything, but if you have like a JavaScript app or a Python app, it's very good at those languages and it can do a lot of that for you. So if you try any of these other ones, I'd love to hear about it. Please drop me a note, send me an email, tell me what your experiences are. I'd love to hear feedback about them. But if you're looking for a tip about what to try, use Copilot and use CodeBuff. Those are the two I think right now. I think there will be other ones that come up. I think some of these other ones will get better and they'll probably leapfrog each other, just like Claude and OpenAI kind of leapfrog each other in terms of raw capability. And I shouldn't leave out Google. Gemini is also really good. So So yeah, I think that's my quick version of this. Okay, I saw a couple of other questions come up in the chat. So let's see here. Um, what plan am I on for Claude? I'm on the regular paid plan, not the big pro, not the fancy like $100 a month one. I'm on the regular paid one. I have not yet hit the end of that in Claude. I suspect that maybe I will because I use these tools a lot. Um, but and then it'll probably be worth it to switch, but I'm not on the pro plan. I do pay for both Claude and ChatGPT. And I use both of their APIs when I'm writing code that I want to integrate an AI into. So I use both of those. Oh, I do also pay for Gemini, but I use Gemini a little bit less. Um, Gemini seems to be really good at planning what to do. Um, Claude seems to be really good at doing it, and OpenAI ChatGPT seems to be really good at researching what to do. Um, so that's kind of how I use these tools at the moment. I will very frequently go to ChatGPT and ask it to make a plan or do some research or find information about this thing and build me a markdown files that outlines all the information. I'll take that markdown and use something like maybe Codex to build the framework, or I'll go directly to Claude and ask Claude to build me the scaffold, build me the MVP, and then copy and paste those into like Visual Studio Code. And then I'll go on from there using Copilot and CodeBuff in some combination to write code. I try really hard these days to actually just use CodeBuff to write most of the code and write only the parts that are super interesting or super weird. Um, let's see. Um, I like to think it makes a difference if you use adjectives like you are a world-class game developer. Any truth to that, or am I just being a suck up? um, I think that there is some truth, but you have to be careful with being over adjective-y. What I think works the best is being very specific. So telling it that is a game developer using these technologies that specializes in X. Um, or you are a Python developer with experience using the ArcGIS Python SDK. Things like that. Because basically, the best way to think of this is you have these large language models that are trained on the whole internet. And it's a huge space of knowledge. And what you want to do is you want to focus it down. You want to tell it where to look. Because when you're writing Python, you don't want it to necessarily go over and worry about recipe websites. So you want to focus it down. But if you focus it too narrowly, there won't be enough knowledge for it to do a good job. So I think that some adjectives do help, but too many might narrow it too much and kind of you get to the other side of the curve where it starts doing not as well again. I know how to build a custom search widget that allows a wildcard search using a percent sign. Supported in Web AppBuilder out of the box. Tried to modify the original search widget, but yeah. So doing a search widget, something like that, I suspect that it could help you build that. I think that would work. I'm not sure what the steps would be off the top of my head because there's kind of the built-in um, there's the built-in search tools inside the SDK, inside the Esri's JavaScript SDK. And I don't know if those raw tools themselves meet the criteria. If they did, then just kind of embedding them in Experience Builder would be pretty straightforward. But if they don't, and you have to actually build your own search tool from scratch, actually something like Claude might be pretty good at building a singular search tool. If you could outline what you needed to do, you might be pretty good at just building kind of a raw JavaScript or TypeScript function like that you could then or widget like that you could take into CodeBuff and then extend upon it to get it into Experience Builder. I have to think more about that. Yeah, theory for how CodeBuff is so good. They're constantly changing models. Yes, and I think you're absolutely right, Danny. That is what makes CodeBuff so good, is that it uses things like, especially in max mode, which is expensive, but it's what I use all the time. It uses Gemini to plan, and then it uses Claude to write code, and then it uses OpenAI for other things. Then it has custom local models to edit files, and it has all of these different things that it can do in different models that it uses to kind of pull all of that together. And I think that is why it's so good. And that's why CodeBuff has kind of an advantage over something like Copilot, which tends to use OpenAI APIs or even like ChatGPT's Codex, which they're not going to use somebody else's models, even if they're better, right? I assume they won't anyway. So I think that's one reason that some of these other ones, like even Replit AI or CodeBuff, why they're better is because they can use whatever models they want, and absolutely, that's what makes them better, I think. Um, okay, so we got that 10 minutes left, so we'll start wrapping up here. I got a couple of things to do. So first off, let's go see how our Pac-Man did. I'm not even going to read this. I am just use the arrow keys to navigate the globe around the coordinate grid, collect pins, collect location pins, and avoid rogue satellites. Well, admitted that didn't work very well. Okay. It's super glitchy. The satellites are moving really fast. When I press the arrow keys, my little globe just kind of goes over to the end and then jumps back to where it was. Okay. It's got some problems. So yeah, so what I would do from here, I'm not going to do it because I want to do one other thing, two other things, but what I would do from here is I would describe these problems to Claude and have it work on it some more, because I think this can be overcome. Um, but I've never done a Pac-Man game, so this is interesting that the first version of the Pac-Man game didn't work out of the box. I'm a little bit surprised because Pac-Man is well known, and I expected that to just pretty much work, but it doesn't always. Okay, so last two things that I want to do here. I want to highlight one of the other questions that I got was from I think it was from my mom, who has a mule named Quartzite, and she asked how she can use GIS to track her mule. And I didn't have a good answer for this. I assume that there are things like pet trackers and things like that for livestock. So what I did is I put her question with a little bit more background into ChatGPT Deep Research, and it asked me a few questions about like what is my budget and do I have cell phone coverage and these different things. And it went off and spent 10 minutes doing research and came back with this. And this is I really like Deep Research because it comes back with this text and it gives you links to things so you can read it, and then you can go directly to the web page and verify that information yourself and find out, is it what I want or not? So this is maybe a slightly silly example, and I'm going to send this PDF to my mom, although she's not here to enjoy that I did this for her. That's okay. I'm going to send this to her and see if that helps her decide if there is a device that she can use to track her mule. I used this the other day to find an exterminator to try to get rid of some of the ants in our house. I described my problem and the type and what I thought the type of ants were and what they looked like, and it came back and asked me some question about the ants and where they were in the house. And that it went off and did some research, and it came back and it said, here, I found these two contractors that fit your vibe and can do what you're looking for. And I went to both their websites. I called both of them. I liked one of them. I called them. They showed up this week. They sprayed. We'll see how it goes over the next 2 weeks. But I used Deep Research to find them. It spent 10 minutes scouring Google looking for the right contractor for me, and I got that 10 minutes back doing something else. So that was super cool. That's my fun use of that. Okay, last thing, how we're going to wrap up today, we're going to play a little game. Yesterday, when I was prepping for this live stream, I had I had Claude build me a little space shooter that's kind of like asteroids, but it is built for mini players. And so I think this is kind of funny. I first tried making multiplayer Pong like with a hexagon, and it failed miserably at it. It could not get multiplayer Pong um, on a hexagon. It couldn't even rotate the hexagon correctly. It just could not understand what I meant, because I wanted to have a flat side on the bottom that was my side. Um, and but asking it to build a multiplayer player asteroids that uses WebSockets to connect multiple players together, and you can shoot asteroids together. That was easy for it, and off it went. So don't let the planets hit you. And now we can play together to destroy all of the asteroids here. Um, you can't shoot each other. I wanted this to be a collaborative game, and it is hard to control, but I think that's kind of makes it fun. Um, yeah, so this took like all of I don't know, a couple of minutes to build, and now we're all playing it together um, live on my live stream, which is kind of fun. I don't know. Clearly, I needed it to make more asteroids, and or I should have made it break the asteroids up instead of just get rid of them when you shoot them, kind of like the traditional asteroids were. But anyway, um, this was really fun. Thank you to everybody who came, and hopefully I got through all of the questions. Um, and and yeah, there'll be another one of these in a month. And I don't know what we'll talk about yet. There'll probably be some new crazy AI thing to talk about. Um, but in the meantime, feel free to blow up some asteroids. So thanks everybody for coming, and I'll talk to y'all soon. I'm just going to sit here and play this for a few minutes so you all can hang out or go to your next meeting, depending on what you want, or ask more questions. Um, yeah, but please join me next week or next month, and yeah, it'll be fun. Oh, I should really have some music. That would be fun. Maybe we can have music next time. Everybody needs a theme song, because that would make this less awkward. Can it generate music? There are AI music generators, um, and they are surprisingly good. They will make very catchy tunes. Um, yeah, there are AI music generators. They are surprisingly good. Um, it's kind of like art in a way. Like, should we actually use it to generate music? I don't know. Um, we can, sure. But I don't think it doesn't mean that we shouldn't generate music as humans. It's whatever. If you are a musician and you like generating your own music, then you should do that. Um, but if you want to use AI too, it's also fun. Yeah, that would be on brand to have an AI generated theme song for an mostly AI themed webinar slash live stream. That'd be pretty on brand. I probably should have made like a scoreboard or something on this app before I deployed it. Maybe next time. No, probably not. This definitely counts as disposable. I'm not gonna touch this again. This is probably, yeah, I'm probably not gonna work on this ever again. This definitely counts as a disposable app. You had ChatGPT generate a MIDI file. Oh, you tried making it generate one directly? Oh, that's fascinating. That's um a there was a I saw someone years ago, this is pre-large language model, talking about music generation using AI models at a conference. And they were talking about using MIDI files versus um, some other representation. And I want to say that the AI models got better when they didn't use, or maybe it was when they used MIDI and not another representation. I don't remember, but it was um, Yeah, the representation of the data matters. Like the way that you represent the data to the machine, it still matters. Um, it's getting to the point where the large language models can do pretty much anything and can read any type of data file format and make sense of it, but it still does matter when you're trying to do things. Okay, it is now the top of the hour, so I am going to exit this and move on to the rest of my day. Please feel free to keep playing asteroids if you want to. Thanks for coming, everybody, and I'll see you next month.